Got it. Understood. No, perfect. This is absolutely brilliant. I think super helpful for the audience to get this broader perspective. I have one last question. It's a difficult question, but it's a question I like to ask everyone who's building in the AI space because I also don't necessarily know the answer to this particular question, which is how do you think about defensibility at this point of time? How do you think about moats in a world where technology, software based capabilities that even you rely on to be able to say build out your product are changing so rapidly, right? Like one could be obviously, I'm curious to your answer that look, it's no different than it was before. It's literally exactly the same, or there's a different insight that you've been able to collect as you've been speaking to so many hundreds of customers and the different design pilots that you're working on. A little bit of a flavor, even if very early. How do you think about slightly longer term defensibility? How do you think about mode? How should people approach this aspect broadly?
So as you said, it's a tricky one. The universal mode that will work in this space that I've come across, and I've worn my consulting hat multiple times to answer this, is uh, the universal fact that in 2 years' time, the kind of platforms, models, whatever you want to call it, depending on where you're working, would be to the order better than what it is today. So think of that universe and how your solution will work in that universe. Don't think of it for today, right? And if you build it for today, then you will be surprised how that mode disappears. If you are building it for that 2 year hence, so see, we all been here for 2, 3 years, right? We've seen how things have changed over the last 2 years, what is happening. You can be rest assured that the next 2 years and the 2 years after that will be faster than that.
Sure.
How is your solution equipped or going to handle that situation so that a customer tomorrow is able to leverage that advancement in an easier manner? So that for me is the easiest mode. The second mode is starts with the problem statement. Say, for example, uh, how I mentioned how easy is it to deploy your solution? How frictionless is it? Now that itself would become a moat for you, because what happens, so if you combine these two, thinking 2 years ahead and how you made yourself frictionless today,
Yes. Yes.
will itself create a moat. Now this is very specific to the use case I mentioned. Now like that, each use case would be different,
Sure.
right? So but the fact also is, Rohit, I feel, yes, moat is very very critical. People keep asking about that, but the opportunity is so big that we sometimes think too much about it, right? Because you tend to spend so much time around creating that moat that you are not doing justice to current execution, because the opportunity is so big that as long as you're flexible to adapt, change with whatever is changing in your ecosystem. Say, for example, I'm trying to build a hardware enabler. Now, how is my hardware enabler today? I'm forced to do a hardware enabler. Now, tomorrow, the ecosystem would be such that I don't need a piece of hardware at all. Say, for example,
Right.
I'm just thinking
Right.
out blue sky thinking. Now, is how would my solution be different tomorrow if my hardware is not required? Would I still be in the game? So then the SaaS that you're building should still be frictionless, right? How do you build that out? Now that's the question that you have to solve. That's the question that I'm asking myself. Like that, similar questions would be asked.
Got it. Got it. Understood. No, absolutely, absolutely brilliant. As we come to sort of the end of the discussion, and I do recognize that we're a fair bit over time, which is a good thing. In the context of any podcast, wanted to also ask, how do you think about like implementing or leveraging AI, not just for the product that you're building, but also internally for the business that you're running today? Right? Wanted to get some perspective. How do you think about building an AI native company? What kind of tools do you use internally? How do your teams, for example, leverage AI to build the product, to run the business? If you could give us a little bit of a flavor of what those things
Yeah, so I
could look
think
like.
at our stage, obviously when you're in build stage, it's all about engineering, right? So my very experienced tech co-founder, his one statement he at least summarizes it for me as a non-techie. He's saying that we will be 100% AI generated code company. Now, that as a starting point was an eye opener for me because in my earlier avatar, I had not been in that situation.
Right.
Now, to some extent, it's forced upon you. And then the question is, hey, will it be of quality? How will it work, etc. But the confidence that I got, right, is that no, this is how it will work. This is the future. You need, again, this is thinking 2 years hence, right? Because that's how it will be to start with over a period of time. So how are you building your systems internally with the right checks and balances, right? Obviously, quality and all quality checks have to be there, but how do you start thinking on those lines? As compared to, I still remember when I was building something maybe 4 years back, the first question would be, I need 25 engineers, 6 QA or 8 QA. Without this, I can't progress. As compared to this discussion, there was, let's start with 1 or 2, right? And then see how do we want to build it. I think that's the current state, and that's very specific to the stage that we are in, right? The this the To give you a broader flavor, I think uh, some of our customers have started thinking on those lines, and that's what I'm
I
hearing. I
see.
think that's very
Right.
interesting because the interesting part is that a lot of companies now, so there are 2 3 nuances. This is not tech, but this is very common sense. If you are approaching a design partner, and if the second generation is taking over, go all in. your your reception would be much better, right?
Right.
If
Right.
so just that's a very commonsensical statement, but you'll be surprised as to how beautiful it is, right? When you go in and you see that a new generation is taking over a business, the acceptability of a solution would be much higher. So keep that in mind, right? The second part is that people have started uh, putting AI budgets now, right, as a separate budget. Now it's and saying, and it's an open budget, can be deployed in any part of the ecosystem. Now these are some of the interesting tidbits and facts that anybody should be aware of, so that
Right.
in your discussions you ask the right leading questions so that you are able to position it correctly, right? I think these are
Got
some
it.
of the nuances that I've picked up.
Got it.
But yeah, I think that would be my point of view.
Understood. Awesome. I think with that, we are at the end of the discussion that we had planned. Once again, thank you so much, Rajiv, for taking out the time to have, this brilliant chat with us. And it was extremely insightful from a product perspective, technology, operations, and then the overall sort of like, I think, framework or philosophy with which you and the team are approaching, building out this AI startup. And I think it's been super interesting because a lot of what you are sharing here with the community comes from a lot of on ground deep research, right, in a sector which a lot of people find very opaque from the outside, right? Because not very few of us have worked in factories, very few of us have any exposure to how some of these very very complex operationally heavy organizations can run. But I think the way you've distilled some of these insights for us, it's been super helpful. And it was brilliant having you over for the session. Thank you everybody who took out the time to also join us on a Sunday morning. And yeah, have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Rohit. Thanks, Rohit. Thanks a lot for giving this opportunity. And I've shared some of the things that I've learned, right? Lots of things to be done more. But yeah, thanks for taking time out. Have a nice day, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you everyone. Take care. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.